This is a food processor, and I am going to show you how to use it because I have recipes for you to try, and they are so much easier to make if you use a food processor. One of them being pie crust. If you have failed at pie crust and you just think pie crust is so hard, I'm never gonna make my own, and you just always go buy it, don't buy it anymore. Use your food processor. Or you wanna make delicious marinades or fresh pesto or chimichurri sauce. If your garden is bursting with fresh herbs, you need to use your food processor. Now, I agree, it's big, it's clunky, it takes up space in your cupboard, so let's put it to use, because if you're not gonna use it, just get rid of it, truly. If stuff doesn't get used in my kitchen, out it goes, because there's just not enough space. We live in an old house, it's like 100 and something years old. This kitchen, it might look like it's big in this video. Maybe it doesn't look big, I don't know. But I'm gonna tell you this, we don't have a ton of cupboard space. So I'm gonna show you how to use it, and I also wanna show you how to make the most easy fail-proof pie crust. And then we're also gonna make a batch of pesto together so that you can use all of that amazing basil in your garden. And pesto is so cool because really, as long as you have basil, you can make pesto, and there's all sorts of ways that you can adjust it and change it. And down in the description below, I'm giving you the recipes to all of this. There's a link to my favorite food processor. This is the big one. I like the big one because then I can make big batches of pie dough. That's what's going on right now. So let's go learn how to use the food processor. Before we put anything into the food processor, let's talk about how it works. And of course, every model is going to be a little bit different. The Cuisinart is the one that I really love because this one can hold up to 8 cups, and so I can do really big batches. But every food processor is the same in the fact that this bottom container with the handle, maybe, it has to be clicked into place before you do anything. And your blade, this blade right here, you want that blade in place before you put anything into your food processor. The worst thing that can happen is you don't have your blade in and you put your stuff in, all of your ingredients in, and then you go to turn it on, and guess what? You can't get your blade down because now all of the ingredients are in there. Believe me, it's annoying. I've done it before. So my rule is this locks into place, my blade goes in, and then the other ingredients go in. Now, all the food processors come with these other blades. My center post stays put. Sometimes you have to put a post in, but these go on there and they can do several different slicings depending on which direction you have it. So make sure that you check yours, because if yours is a double-sided blade, which is so nice because you don't have to have as many blades sitting around, you want to make sure that it's sitting in the right direction before you start. Then here's the other thing that can be very tricky about the food processors. And let's get the blade in here that we want. Our blade is in, our bottom canister is locked. Now, the lid, you have to get it so that usually they start over to the right and then you click it into place. So look at yours and see, okay, where does it just go down all on its own and it's sitting flat? Now, if you try to turn your food processor on, you're like, oh my goodness, what is wrong with it? Why won't it turn on? It's because your lid is not locked into place. So if you have your food processor all stacked together and you can't figure out why it's not turning on, it's probably because your lid needs to click into place. So those are the main things with it. Now, as we get going making our fresh pesto, I will tell you a couple other tips. But here's the cool thing about pesto. You can make this with pine nuts, which lots of people love. That is the traditional pesto. But guess what? You can change up the nuts. You can do a different nut if you want. We have lots and lots of hazelnuts because a family member has a hazelnut tree farm, and so we get lots of hazelnuts from them. So I'm doing it with hazelnuts, and as you saw, I have 3 cloves of garlic. I love to roast the garlic in the oven, and then I put it in so that the garlic taste is not as strong. If you love garlic, you add more garlic to your heart's content. Now we're gonna make sure that our lid is locked, and then we can turn this on because we want to get the hazelnuts and the garlic all mashed together first. One more little tip about the food processor. If the bottom canister is not locked into place, usually you can't really get the top canister locked in to start the machine. So just remember, lock the bottom canister in, blade goes in, then ingredients, and then lock the top canister to start. Perfect. See how it just looks a little bit crumbly? That's the way that you want it to look. Now, if you use pine nuts, it doesn't take very long to get it to this point. Hazelnuts are a little bit harder, so it had to go a little bit longer. Now what we're gonna do is we are going to put our fresh basil in, and you want about 3 cups of fresh basil. I am using, this is all like a culinary basil, and then a little tiny bit of lemon basil as well. And basil, the stalks can get a little bit bitter, so I don't put those in. If you were making something with cilantro, the cilantro stalks can go in, they're fine. Sometimes we do mint, oregano. On those, I take the leaves off as well because sometimes those stalks can just not have the same flavor as the leaf. So we're gonna strip the basil stems or stalks, and the goal is that we would have about 3 cups. But here's the cool thing about these recipes is these are all ish measurements, which essentially means you can adjust it. Like if you love garlic, add more garlic. If you don't want yours to have as much of a nutty flavor, add less nuts. If you want it to be a little bit more lemony, squeeze in more lemon, do more zest. This is the great thing about using the food processor, especially when you're making these fresh sauces like this, because there's nothing in this that is going to harm you if you taste it. It's not like it needs to cook first. And so you can get it all blended together, give it a taste, and adjust it. So now we have our basil in there. I'm actually gonna throw in the Parmesan, and I just kind of chunk it up. It doesn't need to be cut up really small. Some people like to grate it first, but you can just put some chunks of Parmesan in there. The food processor is very strong, and I just do a little squeeze of lemon. You can also do some lemon zest, but that is up to you, how lemony you want it. And then we need a teaspoon of salt. Now we're going to make sure that our lid is locked on, and we're gonna pulse it. So you'll see on the buttons that you have a high, low, off, pulse. The pulse is nice because you have complete control of how fast it's going and how long. So the reason you don't want to just turn it on and let it run is the machine has no way to scrape its own sides. It can't get the stuff that is stuck up here. And so you want to kind of help it a little bit, because otherwise what happens is anything that's down on the bottom gets completely pulverized, mashed, and the stuff that has gotten stuck up on top, it's not getting chopped at the same rate. So that's why the pulsing is really nice, because you have control over how fast it's going. So you can see that it's getting closer to being pretty consistent in the size of chunks, but we're gonna go just a few more pulses. I think the pulse button is so great because here's the thing, you can't turn it on, walk away, get distracted, and then completely pulverize your pesto. Okay, I'm gonna call this good, and now the beauty of being able to drizzle through this opening chute. So you wanna make sure that this cover essentially is in if you are not drizzling into it. The other reason why this is really helpful is when you use any of these blades, this acts as kind of your plunger to be able to push down, whether it's a chunk of cheese or a piece of carrot or whatever it is that you're trying to slice or grate. That is what this works really good to like push it down. But right now what we want to do is we're going to just take it out because we want to drizzle 1/4 to 1/2 cup of our olive oil in. And so for this, I'm going to just turn it on low. Yes, you're right. I don't have a measuring cup. I very rarely measure. And so that is why I call this ish measurements, because you get to decide how creamy do you want your pesto. But measure it. Start with 1/4 cup and then add up to 1/2 cup as needed. Okay, now with that olive oil in there, you can see that it's getting nice and creamy. Now, I don't like ours really heavy on the oil. I like it to have more of the basil and all of that flavor. And this is where you get to decide. Do you want it to be a little bit more oily? Do you want it to be more like a paste? You get to be the one to determine. But usually I use somewhere between 1/4 cup to 1/2 cup. And here we go. Now we have the most delicious garden fresh pesto ready to go. And truly, if you're not chatting with anybody or trying to make a video, you can make this in about 5 minutes. You can have this fresh pesto straight from your garden, and the food processor did all the work. You can't just put it in the fridge or serve it. You do have to taste it, which is such a bummer. It's very flavorful, but I think I want a little bit more basil and a little bit more lemon. Here's the thing, when you use fresh produce, it's never gonna be exactly the same. It's why a lot of times in our recipes, I just say this is an ish measurement because I want you to taste it. You get to be in charge of what it tastes like, and not every lemon is the same, not every basil leaf is the same, and so you get to be the one to determine, do I want it lemony? Do I want more salt? Do I want more basil? Do I want it a little bit more oily? So I'm going out to the garden. I gotta go pick some more basil. Okay, let's talk about how to save pesto. I've never canned it. I know that people will ask that. I know it's possible because you can buy a canned pesto in the store, but I've never done it. So here's how I save it. When you make that big batch in your food processor, it's gonna fill 2 of these jars, and these are 1/2 pint jars. Our family of 5 eats about 1/2 of 1 jar for 1 meal. And so 1 jar I use for dinner that night, and then I put this in the fridge. The other jar goes into the freezer. So this one is now frozen, and you can see it's this like beautiful creamy green color. Make sure you put a label on the top. I know you think you will remember, oh, that's pesto, but I can promise you from so much experience that I never remember. And then I have to let it thaw for a little bit, and I'm like trying to smell it. Put a label on the top. Okay, here's the thing about pesto. When you put it in the fridge, it is going to get kind of that like creamy white color. And here's why. When you use real olive oil, when you put it in the fridge, it gets hard, which maybe you've found that before. Like when you make your own salad dressing, don't keep it in the fridge because the olive oil will get hard. But that's where we keep the pesto. Because that olive oil is like mixed up with all of that basil and lemon juice and all that goodness, the pesto itself is not hard, but it will still get a little bit of that creamy white color. Now, this is what's so interesting. Have you seen when you put stuff, sometimes you put stuff in the fridge, or think about, okay, an apple. When you cut an apple, it will start to turn brown. That's just oxidation. It's like the air reacting with the natural, like all the naturalness of the apple, it turns it brown. That same thing happens to basil. So the top of it will turn a much darker color than this bottom part, and you can almost see the difference in the color. There's nothing wrong with that part of the pesto. It's just that the air has reacted with it. So when you fill your jar up, and you're gonna put it in your fridge, what you can do to kind of help it not get turn that darker brown, is put just a little bit of olive oil on the top, and that kind of seals it. It doesn't let any of the air get in there and start to react with it. Nothing's wrong with it. We're gonna eat this. We're gonna spread it on some focaccia bread, which I will put the link below. If you wanna make sourdough focaccia bread, or if you're not into sourdough, I'm gonna tell you a secret. Our family actually likes the original focaccia bread the absolute best. I do a lot of times make it with our sourdough because I have the dough in the fridge, but the focaccia bread just made with yeast, oh my goodness, it is like out of this world, amazing. Put pesto on it, so good. Anyways, that is how we store our pesto. If there's more questions, put them down in the comments below. We love your questions. It really, truly, like, I am so happy to answer them. I try to answer them as fast as I can. If you don't hear from me right away, just know it's because I'm probably in the garden. But this pesto, I have some leftover focaccia. That's where this is going. This one's going in the freezer, and we're gonna have fresh pesto some other time. And oh, you can make fresh pesto pizza. So good. I'll put the pizza recipe below too, because we do use the sourdough pizza dough almost every single week. It is so delicious, and it's really easy to just have it ready ahead of time. So let's put the lid on the pesto. And now, are you ready? We're gonna go make some pie crust. And truly, with your food processor, you are gonna love making pie. It is so, so easy. So let's dive in to how to do that. This is the absolute easiest pie crust you're ever gonna make. You're gonna love doing it with your food processor. It is fail-proof. So reminder, get the bottom canister locked into place. Make sure that the blade is all the way down before you start adding in the dry ingredients. You'll be frustrated if you have to dump the dry ingredients out to put the blade back down. So with ours, I just put my finger over that little middle post because I feel like sometimes the flour gets stuck down in there. But we're gonna start by adding the flour. You wanna get your dry ingredients in first, and then we're gonna use that lovely pulse button to mix them up before we add anything else. So here's one thing to remember. Don't forget the salt. Even though it's a really small amount of salt that you put in, when you forget the salt in your pie crust, it is crazy how flavorless it will be. So don't forget the salt, and then add in that sugar. Even when we are doing a savory pie, I still add the sugar in because it just gives a little bit more depth to the pie crust. It doesn't make it sweet. It's only 1 tablespoon, and this batch of pie crust is enough to make 2 double crust pies, or 4 single pies, or 4 large galettes, or 25 mini galettes. So all that to say, this is a lot of pie crust. The sugar just gives it a little depth of flavor, so don't omit it. Then you're going to lock your lid on, and we're gonna pulse this. The reason why you wanna pulse it before you put in the butter and the Crisco or the lard is because you don't want the butter or that lard to get stuck to all of the salt, and then all of the salt gets stuck in one spot of your pie crust. So when you pulse it, it allows the flour, salt, sugar to all get combined before we start adding any of the fats to it. Now, I have found that just a small amount of Crisco goes a long way to making the flakiest pie crust. I have yet to try lard, but it's on my list of things to do. Maybe this fall I will get to it. But what I do is you're going to have 3/4 a cup of butter, and you want to cut it up into chunks. So for us here in America, for the standard butter sticks, you're using 1.5 sticks. But if you're not here, just know it's 3/4 of a cup. And you want to cut it up into smaller chunks because this is very cold butter, straight from the fridge. It doesn't need to be frozen, but you do want to use it straight from the fridge. And the reason why you want to cut it up
is because we don't want to have to process it for so long. If you put like one whole chunk of butter in there, it would get stuck. It would take a really long time for the food processor to truly get it cut into all of that flour. And so when you put these small chunks in, it allows it to get cut into the flour faster and easier. And yay, we don't have to cut it in by hand. The food processor is doing that. But here's the thing, you don't want to have chunks of butter in your pie crust, because then what ends up happening is that when you go to bake it, that butter melts and you end up with holes or like weird spots in your pie crust. So do small chunks of cold butter, and then I just do 6 tablespoons of Crisco. I know it's not my favorite thing to bake with because I don't really think it's real food, but it really makes the best pie crust. So just 6 tablespoons in this entire batch. It's not cold, it's straight out of my cupboard, so it's just room temperature. I don't worry too much about the Crisco being cold, and truly it would be okay if your butter wasn't cold either, because we're going to chill this pie crust. It is essential. Don't skip the chilling step. It really makes your pie crust so much better. It makes it flakier. It hardens up that Crisco or lard. If you have lard, use it. And it hardens up the butter so that when it goes into the oven, it makes for the flakiest pie crust. So now we have all of the fats in there, which are essential for pie crust. You can't make pie crust without some fat in it. And now we're going to blend this. So a reminder about your food processor: the bottom canister needs to be locked in place, then lock the top canister in place, and you can just turn it on to high, because our goal right now is to process this until the flour starts to look just a little bit crumbly. We're wanting to ensure that all of that butter has gotten cut into the flour. Now, it's not going to look like dough yet. We have to add water in order for that to happen, but right now we want it to look kind of damp and a bit crumbly. See how it's starting to stick together? That's what you want it to look like before you start adding the flour. Sometimes I have to shake it down a little bit and do it again, but keep processing it until you can see that that flour is really starting to get that crumbly look. Now we get to use our little magic chute, and you're going to turn the food processor on to high, and you're going to slowly pour in 1/2 cup of cold water. Now the reason why you don't just dump the whole thing in there is because you will end up with one soggy chunk of flour and everything else will be dry, and it will be hard for the food processor to really get all of that flour incorporated. So slowly drizzle it in, and sometimes I need like 1 extra teaspoon just to get it to come together. But here's the thing, we are going to process it until you see that dough start to stick together. See how all of a sudden it just went to one side? That means it is ready. So stop the processor, take the lid off, and we're now going to take it out and chill it. This is what your pie dough should look like now. It's going to be all stuck together on one side. Sometimes there's still a few little crumbles down in the bottom, or one part is just a little bit more damp than the other parts. Don't worry, we're going to take it out of there. We're going to wrap it up in saran wrap or plastic wrap, and it's going to go into the fridge. Or if you think, I'm not going to be able to use all this pie crust right away, you can wrap it up really well and put it in the freezer. Now here's the thing to remember, that blade down there in the bottom of the food processor is crazy sharp. Be so careful with it. I treat it like it's a snake. I barely want to touch it because I have accidentally cut myself. I thought I was being careful, and still I have cut myself with it. So just know it is so sharp. So I like to just very gently, if I have to, I will just very gently wipe the stuff off of it. But truly, be so careful. I don't want you to cut yourself. That makes working in the kitchen not fun. Okay, so here's the thing. when I made this big batch, I knew that I was going to make a slab pie, which uses this entire batch of dough because you make this big pie in a big baking sheet. So I'm gonna wrap this up in one big lump. I don't encourage you to do that unless you know you're gonna make a slab pie. If you think you're gonna use this for 2 individual pies, or you're just really not sure, wrap it up into 4 individual pieces, because then you can choose to pull out whatever you need. If maybe you're going to make a single crust pie and you're going to fill it with like fresh strawberries and a rhubarb glaze, maybe you're going to make some mini pies or mini galettes or a rustic pie. So you can choose how you want to wrap it up. Don't worry right now if you are needing to work with it. Like mine had some crumbles on one side and was still a little bit damp on the other, and I needed to work with it so that it had a little bit better consistency throughout. You can mess with your pie dough right now and you are not going to ruin it. When people talk about working with their pie dough too much, what they're talking about is they are working too much flour into it. Well, right now we're not adding any more flour into it. So if you need to fiddle with it to get it to kind of stick together and be in the middle of your plastic wrap, it's fine. You can fiddle with it. If you are choosing to freeze some, I wrap mine in double wrap and then I put it in a freezer bag or a freezer container and it goes straight into the freezer. To use it from the freezer, I take it out, let it sit on the counter until I can squish it, and then I still work with it when it's cold. The goal of keeping your pie dough really cold is because you want that butter and that Crisco or lard to do all of the melting when it's in the oven. So this right now is going to go into the fridge. And guess what? I actually broke this recipe out of our cookbook for the plum slab pie, and we have a cooking class video all about how to make the slab pie. So I'm going to put that link down in the description below. I'm also going to put a link down in the description for how to make a rustic pie or a galette. A galette sounds very, very fancy, but truly, if you're just starting with pies, I encourage you to start with the rustic galette. It's so easy. You don't have to shape or pinch or do anything. And if you want the rest of the goodness from our cookbook, that link is below as well. We donate a portion of all of our profits to fight human trafficking. So when you purchase our cookbook, when you watch our cooking class videos, you are helping us fight trafficking in the most beautiful way.
So however you are going to use your food processor, I just want to encourage you to have fun. Go make the marinades, make the sauces, make the pie crust. Use that appliance. It's there to make your life so much easier. And here's the goal. It's not just about an appliance. It's not just about making great food. This is about filling our tables with joy. And what I learned a long, long time ago when I watched my grandma and she was filling the table with the stuff she loved to make. She did all of that because we were there. And that's why you do it, right? You don't do all of this work, saving this and growing stuff in the garden and filling the table just because we like good food. No. We do all of it because we love gathering our people, and we hope that it inspires you to do that as well. So I'm so glad you're here in the kitchen. I'm going to show you how to use more appliances because I have some really delicious recipes that I want you to try.